And now for something completely different.
Forget everything you've been told by others before. Get ready for the real deal, the full story. Real talk about money, markets, life. Now, it's The Real Investment Show, presented by RIA Advisors.
And happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to The Real Investment Show. I'm Rich Rosso, certified financial planner. Unfortunately, my co-pilot is not here today. But, well, actually, the real pilot is here. Mr. Brent Clanton with all his buttons and fancy dials. One day I'm going to come in here around 3:30 if I can beat him in and just mess everything up. I will not do that. That's like when I call you and you go, hit that button that says XP-4 to the second power. I'm like, what? Dang.
You know, that happened one morning. Danny called me.
Oh, well, you had to be in panic, right?
How do we start this thing?
How do we get this thing going? Hey, listen, this has been the longest week in history, for me anyway.
I believe it.
Boy, I am glad it's over. I hope you all have a great weekend. But boy, it did seem, with all the news and second possible wave of COVID and...
we got a 4-day work week next week, and that'll help us recuperate.
I am COVIDed out and newsed out.
Yeah.
Newsed out. Overall, the only thing that seems normal around here lately is the market, and the market isn't normal. So go figure that one. So the S&P right now is sitting on, roughly on its 50-day moving average. You could be setting up a consolidation trade here for a bit, where we're just going to work off overbought conditions. Try to get a feel for what this next wave is going to look like. If it is that, try to take a look at what sectors are working. We seem to be unraveling the economic expansion trade, going back into going home and hiding in the hidey hole trade. The Amazons and the Microsofts, consumer staples, grocery stores, right? You're going to see some vicious sector rotation moves because, frankly, everybody is uncertain. It's a fits and starts kind of situation overall. Our premise here at RIA is that you are not going to get this V-shaped recovery. You'll get up to a point and then sort of flatten out for a period of time. In addition to that, you will have many companies that are going to cull their workforces, really dig into their businesses, and unfortunately, unemployment isn't over yet. We've seen this. There have been some recent reports of small and mid-sized businesses letting people go. This is just trying to figure out what the landscape is. So in that case, you will be whipsawed depending on how you're invested. Sector rotations from economic expansion back to staying at home, working at home, or some of the long-term trends actually we see are going to be vicious and violent and take your emotions along for the ride. So if you've been in a fairly balanced portfolio, you might not have recovered yet from the downside or the bottom of the market. Obviously, you've made up a lot of ground. However, you also have to keep in mind that if you've been in the post-expansion trades, the airlines, and even some of the stocks that make no sense that they move, like a Hertz and so forth, you might be risk off here for a period of time as new data continues to come. In other words, the dust is starting to clear. So this is from CNBC, but there's data from a company called Homebase. They do scheduling for small and mid-sized businesses in the service sector. And they are, based on their numbers, it looks like employment may have declined in some areas over the past week or so. Again, everybody is grasping for data, right? Homebase is not the the greatest source of data. What I'm saying is we're all grasping for or examining what this might look like. But the employment recovery, even though we were at the bottom, it's going to take longer. It's going to be slower. It's not going back to what it was. At least it's not going to go back to what it was in the way the market might be expecting it to be. So therefore, a couple of things are going to happen. Just like when my dogs want cookies at 2 a.m. in the morning, which is not fun, Brent. I don't know if Sophie gets up for cookies, but it's like a 2 to 3 a.m. thing. We've got to get a cookie for some reason. And I just, you know what? I relent. I give them the darn cookies because then I know we're going back to bed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The dog's going to want their cookies. We're going to want more stimulus. We're going to want the Fed to step up again. But most important, we are going to be looking at some form of fiscal stimulus that needs to come back. I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know how both parties are going to come to an amicable conclusion when it comes to that. But more people are going to continue to suffer because businesses have gotten smaller. We have had this demand destruction that now needs to rebuild. And America is really good at rebuilding, but it takes time. It takes households time to rebuild. Matter of fact, there are many households that haven't recovered from the Great Recession, and now they have to rebuild whatever they had again. So, and those that did and who have prospered are really examining their budgets, really going through everything they spend because of economic uncertainty. Listen, it's normal when you come out of something like this or the haze starts to clear that you might be in the muck for a while. So as the mist clears and you look down at your feet and you can't move, you realize you're stuck in the mud. That's your next cycle, the stuck in the mud cycle. I've been called that on dates, stuck in the mud. But the stuck in the mud cycle, and what I mean by that is it's going to take longer for America's feet to sort of push out and move. Household by household, because of the damage done to balance sheets. When we get back, we're going to talk about the winter of your household finances. Big book that we read around here on at the REA office for the team, The Fourth Turning. We'll talk a little bit about that. When we return, and an event we have tomorrow, we hope you're able to attend in your pajamas. The Candid Coffee. And we'll talk about that here at 700 KSEV, the voice of Texas. We'll be right back.
The Real Investment Advice blog. It's required reading for the informed investor. Catch it today at realinvestmentadvice.com.
Welcome back to the Real Investment Show. I'm Rich Rosso, certified financial planner. We're so glad you're with us today. Hope you have a very restful weekend coming up. Any big plans for the fourth holiday there,
Yes.
Mr. Clinton? What are you doing?
My grandchildren are coming in from Tennessee.
They are cuties.
Yeah, so we're going to spend all next week, because we're going to be off.
I'm sure the missus is not happy about this.
Hey, no therapy.
Grandparents therapy.
Yeah.
You know what? You're doing such a great thing because I don't know about everybody else, but even though everybody's parents have, I'm sure, been great, there is something about your grandparents you never forget.
Oh,
if it were for
yeah.
my grandparents, I don't know what would happen to me. But there's nothing like that feeling you would get when you would go to your grandparents' house to stay. I don't know. I wish we could, as we're adults, how do we bring that feeling up again in ourselves.
Yeah.
Remember those feelings?
Well,
what you would have
I think
when you were with your grandparents? It was nothing like it. Nothing like it.
The way you do it is you spend time with your grandkids so that they have that
So
experience.
that does it, huh?
Yeah.
Haley, get to work.
You know, when I was growing up,
Yeah.
we would alternate weekends. One weekend we'd go see the maternal grandparents, and the following weekend the paternal grandparents. And for as long as I can remember, that was the routine. One set lived in Conroe, one lived in Wharton County, so it was, an easy one-day trip, and that's what we did.
For me, it was almost like different colors of households, the way I looked at it, because they were all so different. My great-grandmother was from Italy. She came directly from Sicily, and it would be much more traditional Italian stuff we would do, right, and cook and all that. And then you go to my dad's parents, and they're first generation here. But the point is, it was a lot different. It was much more Americanized, even though grandma was very American. Great grandma was. I don't know, but I've learned different lessons from both. The love of radio came from my dad's mother, who never went anywhere without an AM radio in New York. And she would sleep with the radio on all night on 1010 Winds, which is the news station in New York, right? Mm-hmm. Scare me to death. I had this horrible scare of like somebody was going to break into the house. But on 1010 Winds, they'd have this ominous opening and talk about all the crime going on in the 70s. She found that comforting to sleep to. Now, guess what I do?
Really?
Guess who sleeps with the radio on every night? Mm-hmm. And who had this love of radio, of AM radio since I'm a kid, right? Listening to it, delivering newspapers, WABC, WOR, Rambling with Gambling.
Yeah.
There's some icons in New York. I'm sure you had some icons. Did you have some radio talk show icons here?
Oh, here in Houston we did, yeah. And we would listen to WLS in Chicago. You could pick up KVOO out of Tulsa. So yeah.
Sort of like what 700 does for you guys.
Exactly.
It's that feel like, I guess I always felt like I needed company. I wanted that company.
Well, and that's the one thing.
Maybe that's what Grandma did, but she always had that radio on.
That's the one thing that terrestrial radio provides that satellite cannot. And I love listening to Sirius, but they're not here. They don't know what's going on outside right now. And that makes a difference.
There is. There's something cold and distant about satellite radio compared to local, especially AM radio.
Oh, and here's an ugly secret.
Especially when Chris X makes me laugh in them.
Most of those satellite guys are voice tracked. They're not there.
How dare you?
It's recorded.
How dare you?
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to get your summer reading list together, I've got a stack of books. I always put out a reading list on RIA. But man, there are just too many political books for me to read. I don't really want to be depressed. So I'm trying to find some good fiction books to read for the summer. There are a lot of people. I had to cancel some plans to go to LA at the end of July and hopefully for August. But I'm hearing about a lot of people who are saying, who knows what's going on? We're canceling trips. So I just am not as confident. And again, obviously this is anecdotal. We crunch a lot of numbers as they come in, but I think we are setting ourselves for some disappointment as far as recovery. That doesn't mean we're going to retrace. It just means that the recovery process is going to be long and slow and volatile. And don't forget, we are going to go into political season. That adds more volatility to what we're doing. If you do want to pick up a book, okay? William Strauss and Neil Howe wrote a book in 1997 called The Fourth Turning, an American Prophecy, What the Cycles of History Tell Us About America's Next Rendezvous with Destiny. It's a really popular read among us here, especially now as the premise of the fourth turning grows prevalent. And so there are seasons to life. There are seasons to culture. There are eras of discovery and turmoil and tranquility and war, but winter is the powder keg. The cold front for us in America began in 2007 with the Great Recession. At grassroots levels, we must prepare for the coldest of seasons. According to the book, that's through 2030. So I thought about this and figured households have to have a renewed level of resolve. They have to prepare financially for this cycle. So as these wheels of cultures turn from crisis to awakening and back again to crisis with regularity, and we are in that crisis cycle, right? That time doesn't just fade into the good night. There are sharp breaks, razors of transition that are common as cultures traverse the seasons. So the book, even like I said, was in 97. It predicted a lot of the events that we witness today. The current turmoil, when you read the book, you'll realize isn't unusual at all. So over the last 5 centuries, we have entered a new era or turning almost every 2 decades. So, and at the start of each turn, people change how they feel about everything. Themselves, the future, the very foundation of the nation, right? When you go through these turns, they take a long time. But these are seasonal rhythms. It's growth, maturation, entropy, destruction. And this fourth turning is the crisis. That's your secular upheaval. So where the old civic order replaces the new. So this is the history. The winter is the greatest break between one season and another. So the survival, so this is according to the authors. Now, they believe, this is how prescient they are, they believe that winter would start around 2005, when remnants of the old social order would disintegrate. Political, economic trust would implode. Listen, they weren't that far off, right? I think it started with the Great Recession in 2007. What they write is, the survival of the nation will feel at stake. Now, again, this is just the book and the authors, and if you want, it's really cheap. It's not expensive on Amazon to pick up the paperback. But they said before the year 2025, America will pass through a great historical gate commensurate with the American Revolution, Civil War, and twin emergency of the Great Depression and World War II. So in crisis, the risk of catastrophe is high. So a nation in crisis can ignite into insurrection, civil violence, break apart geographically, or succumb to authoritarian rule, right? So I'm not trying to scare anybody. I don't know if this is going to happen. The book is just incredibly knowledgeable and as it looks at seasons. But I think you have to look at the winter of your finances. So you had these great wealth and income inequalities that were fueled by central bank policies. Listen, that's what's been driving markets for the most part. Also, you've had publicly traded corporate actions of malinvestment. And that, what it did is it took employee wage and career growth on the back burner for decades, just made it harder. So in 2009, I started to really get concerned. I was worried that, okay, if nothing changed and the wealth inequality would continue to grow, then what would happen, right? Now we find that close to 50% of households never really recovered financially from the Great Recession. So you have this great divide that you have. And you have to remember the stock market really isn't the economy. So the Fed does a study and it looks at stock ownership. The wealthiest 10% of U.S. households own close to 90% of all stocks and mutual funds. Less than 50% of families who lost a job due to the pandemic can raise $400 in an emergency. This is not new news to you guys. We talk about this all the time. We just try to crunch the data, objectively. Close to 30% of Americans are still tapping their retirement accounts to survive. So I want to make sure your family finances survive. I think a lot of advisors are going to remain complacent through this. But I think it is a little bit different this time. This next war plan is going to take hours of you guys at dining room tables where the ideas are going to be formed. I want to give you a few of those ideas when we return here at The Real Investment Show on 700 KCV, the voice of Texas. Stay tuned for our next segment. We'll be right back.
Real Investment Show podcasts are now available on iTunes. Listen anyplace, anytime at iTunes.com.
Brent's letting me run crazy today. I didn't even give you guys the futures. Dow futures are down 44 points. S&P futures up 3 at 3074. We're sitting on a fairly critical support level here, or close to it. That bears watching. NASDAQ futures up. If you want to buy bonds today, I'm sorry for you. You're not making any. You're not going to earn anything at the U.S. 10-year at 0.67%. So we had some bank stress test results that didn't come out as well as we figured. Wow, what a shock. Nike had a loss, reports a loss. Again, we have to see what retailers are saying, except for Amazon. This seems to be taking over the world overall. We're sort of have no idea what earnings are going to be or guidance is going to be. There's really very little visibility here. It's everybody's best guess, including us. As hard as we study, and we meet every day, when you're going through uncharted territory, you go in step by step, and then sometimes you have to take a step back. Nobody's perfect. Your advisors are not perfect. What your advisors need to have today, though, is an open mind for change. And sometimes that's not easy because the old tenets of finance sometimes don't apply. What does apply, seemingly, are some of what the things you do in your household to protect yourselves. Okay? And we'll talk about those. But tomorrow, we have Candid Coffee again. I love that commercial you come, Brett, because I'm just thinking that's my next job. I'm going to be a barista. No, I really figured out what my next job's going to be.
What's that?
I'm going to work at Buc-ee's. Why not? Buc-ee's is great. I mean, there's no place more magical than Buc-ee's. When I first came to Texas, I think I hit Buc-ee's the first 6 months I got here. I don't think I ever leave Buc-ee's without spending $50 to $100.
Oh, that's easy to do.
Not happen.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about an incredible success story and formula for success. When Haley was younger, we would even go, listen, what road trip to Buc-ee's? We would just go to Buc-ee's. Yeah. There's something about it. I'm not a Texan, but I feel it when I'm there. It's just great.
Well, and even with this pandemic and the social distancing and people allegedly staying home, the last couple of trips that we've made where we stop on the way at our favorite Buc-ee's, which is out on 290 West, place is packed. I mean, packed.
I went even during COVID, and I can actually get through, but it was still relatively packed.
Right.
And the people there are so friendly.
Yeah, they're all very nice.
They talk to you, but you're going to have the happy fudge. I mean, it's like Candyland.
Well, how could you not
like you
work
land
in a fudge place and be
Well,
and
it's
not
like
be
the
happy?
best Monopoly. Why doesn't Buc-ee's have a Monopoly? Listen, you guys, Buc-ee's Monopoly. I just landed on Fudgeland. Now I'm going to Jerkyville.
Ooh.
Then, if I see a Buc-ee's Monopoly game, I know.
Copyright 2020. Richard Rosso.
So, it's a good place if you've never been. How dare you if you haven't? So tomorrow from 8 to 9 a.m., we're going to do What's Brewing in Your Finances. These are questions we have coming into us at Real Investment Advice. It's an hour long. Danny and I are in robes, and they're the hottest robes ever. And I don't mean hot. I mean literally hot.
You mean you didn't upgrade yours?
I didn't upgrade my silk robe. I need to get my silk robe with my monogram, or maybe a little chihuahua on it. But no, so I'm dreading the robe tomorrow. But this is a great forum for an hour from 8 to 9 tomorrow morning. When you go to Real Investment Advice, you sign up. It's a go-to meeting event. You can send us questions because what we're trying to do is help you prepare for the winter of your household finances, Danny and I. This is very candid conversation. These are not financial studies from 1989 that everybody still thinks are valid, okay? This is talking about steps you need to take to make your household less financially vulnerable. And you could have weathered this whole COVID thing just fine, but there are changes yet to come. There is underemployment yet to come. There are surprises yet to come. We want to make sure that you're able to take advantage of sitting back, having a breath, and not panicking. So based on COVID, we're going to see a lot of revolution in household finances. One of those ways is thinking about staying healthy. I know it sounds a bit crazy, but I will tell you, unhealthy people accumulate less wealth, they are forced to retire sooner, and they suffer shorter life expectancies. But being unhealthy in retirement, even if one has the money, is not fun. It's an emotionally challenging existence. So we have to study, based on COVID, we have yet to estimate long-term costs to Medicare and Medicaid as workers retire sooner. That could portend to continued above-average inflation, possibly close to 7% for Medicare Part B premiums, Medigap supplemental coverage, Medicare Advantage. So as a group, our advisors are increasingly vigilant when it comes to monitoring of information that requires us to, say, alter our inflation estimates for financial plans. There are a lot of studies out there that'll show you that unhealthy people accumulate substantially less wealth than healthy people. So this was a study done. It's a National Bureau of Economic Research working paper. Among 65-year-old males with a high school degree, the median wealth of healthy individuals is almost twice those who are unhealthy. That's $230,000 versus $120,000 and $215,000. Fidelity, one of our custodians, the average couple will spend a total of $280,000 in today's dollars for medical expenses throughout retirement, and that does not include, which people think it does, long-term care. Right? Long-term care, activities of daily living, bathing, eating, and so forth. So I've witnessed myself unhealthy couples spend close to half of their annual income on healthcare costs, which includes Medicare premiums plus out-of-pocket costs. And I've seen how that inflation is really detrimental to them. And keep in mind, your cost of living adjustments for Social Security over the next few years are probably not going to be good. The estimate for next year is 0. So for me, it was a wake-up call to make dramatic changes to my health habits over the last 3 to 4 years. I don't want a retirement if I'm going to have to be saddled by poor health. And I don't want to witness clients, nor do any of us, go through a lifetime of hard work just to face a poor quality retirement. So you got to start with the basics, right? 3 of the most common health issues in the United States: lack of physical activity, overweight or obese, and tobacco usage. These are improvements that are all in our control. It's like a financial discipline. If you're financially disciplined, and a lot of people who listen to this show are, to pay yourself first, small, steady improvements over the years lead to big results. So people come to us and they go, here are our spending habits, create a budget. Oh my gosh, well, what about high quality foods, unprocessed foods? Oh gosh, expensive. Okay, I might have a solution for you there. People cut the gym expense. And I'm like, no, we're going to add that back in. Now, what happens during COVID? We can't go to the gym, but you can't find exercise equipment. That's a good thing. People are finding ways to walk more, head out more. I don't know about you, Brent, but I've seen a lot of kids on bikes in the neighborhoods that I haven't seen before. Like, it almost reminded me back in the old days where we'd get on our bikes and disappear forever.
Well, you don't have to have fancy gym equipment to work out at home either. Take the gallon milk jugs.
No, my gym did all kinds of creative things. But what I'm saying is, but if you go try to find just gym equipment, barbells, dumbbells,
or smart bells.
Yeah. Where are those? It's very difficult.
Yeah.
So people are looking at being more health conscious. I just hope it's a process, and habits have been formed through this COVID period that they stay. But it's really nice to see kids outside instead of cooped up with the electronics. That's a good change.
You know what's in short supply? Used bikes.
Yeah.
We're looking
Well,
for a
actually,
bike
new
for our
bikes.
granddaughter to ride next week. Can't find them.
Not even on Nextdoor or anything
Well,
like that?
no. I haven't tried Nextdoor,
But sometimes, but again, to your point, you're making a great point.
people are buying them up.
Even new bikes, you're gonna see higher costs. Okay,
Supply and demand.
it is, but it's a good trend. It's a good trend. See, we have to look at what are the good things that are going to come out of this. Now, people always lament to me, "Oh, Rich, it's expensive to eat healthy." Okay, so I may have found a solution for you. I purchase fresh produce and other foodstuffs from imperfectfoods.com. Listen, this is like the misshape. It's like the apple with the dent. The eggplant nobody wants. It's like the island of misfit toys for food. Okay, this is also farm overstock, right? So it's imperfectfoods.com. So I customize my basket. I customize my timing and delivery. I choose a grocery plan up front that fits my lifestyle, and then they're delivered to my door like I get a delivery today. And then every week they provide suggestions. Hey, you can update your cart. What do you want to add? Reduce items. It's actually very affordable. It's not the pretty. These are not pretty carrots. I'm going to tell you. This is not pretty. But this is a good service because it's looking at all that additional farm overstock or oversupply. And again, they have meats, cheeses, all of that. So take a look at that. You might find it very, very helpful. When I get back, I'm going to give you a mental trick that I use to stay healthy. You might decide on what kind of mental trick do you need. And also, read our blog. Lots of good stuff. realinvestmentadvice.com. Sign up for Lance's newsletter for delivery. Your mailbox, Saturday. It's very, very comprehensive. Need a lot of coffee, but you'll get a lot from it. Hey, stay tuned for our last segment here on 700 KUCV, the voice of Texas. We'll be right back.
Get daily investment news you can use, delivered at the speed of the internet. Sign up for the Real Investment Report now at realinvestmentadvice.com.
This is that ice cold Michelle Pfeiffer, that white gold. This one for them hood girls.
White gold. Trying to figure out what that would be today. Yogurt. if I'm talking about eating healthy.
Yeah.
The white gold. Probiotic. Go, Joe. All right. So, now, again, Candid Coffee tomorrow. We're going to probably have another one. We're hoping in July. I think July 25th.
The 25th.
25th. So once a month, just an hour. Send us your questions. It's really great. Kids, dogs, puppets. Who knows what else is going to show up on this thing. It's a lot of fun, though, because what I think we do best at RIA, Lance, all of us, we relate to Main Street very much. We don't like to be stuck in the financial industry bubble. We like to crunch our own data. We don't want to outsource our investment management. We study like crazy the academics and the books. We have no other goal but to give you objective information. That is the goal. We have nobody telling us that there's a sales quota or you need to sell this product of the day. It's not the job. That's not the job of your fiduciary. Your fiduciary is there to make sure the decisions he or she makes is in your highest and best interest. A broker is not a fiduciary. There are places for brokers, right? They break stuff. No, I'm kidding. They fit you to product. And that's fine when you need a product. A fiduciary is looking at your holistic situation. And even if there's a recommendation that is, of course, not going to benefit your fiduciary, that fiduciary still must make that choice for you or that suggestion. And I love this about what we do. I think all of us do. We sleep well at night. But one of the mental tricks that I use to keep my long-term financial and physical health on the right track is before I do anything and I indulge in any activity, I mentally increase or reduce my retirement savings by $100, right? So if I trade out a burger and fries for salad, I add 100, right? If I'm about ready to indulge in something unhealthy or I'm going to miss a workout, I subtract 100. Now, this is all a mental rules, right? And I'm calculating all the time, but it compels me to halt and to consider what I'm about to do. That's all it does. I'm not physically putting money or taking money out of my retirement account. And at the end of the week, I'm going to review my additions and my subtractions. The goal for me is to finish net positive. So some weeks I'm 100% positive and I reward myself with a treat. See, it's at this point where the mental accounting exercise is on autopilot and it's highly useful for me. So it's become a healthy path. So this positive trend emerging from COVID is really good, right? This focus on physical activity. Not only that, but a better mental health and a priority change. A priority of spending more time with our children on the weekends, right? Doing healthful things as opposed to being overwhelmed by work. Okay? Americans are the hardest working group in the world. And sometimes I believe it's not very healthy. It's not healthy for the culture. It's not healthy for the household. This COVID gives us a breath to sit back and try to change those things. Right? Now, keep in mind also, one of the household finance diseases or viruses, and Danny and I talk about this all the time, are the household debt to income ratios that you hear in mainstream media. These mortgage and financial ratios are ridiculous. They are designed to extend the latitude of consumerism and place your household into more debt. They're not designed at all to fortify your fiscal health. Their goal is to have you part with your money. So you have to ignore them and redefine those boundaries. So like a house payment shouldn't exceed 28% of pre-tax income. That's it. It's a horrible rule. All right. It's again designed to push the boundaries on your cash flow. You have to throw it out because it gives you financial flexibility. Dave Ramsey suggests 25% of after-tax income. That's not bad, but you could do better. So our rule at RIA is a total mortgage payment. Total, right? Insurance, HOA, everything should not exceed 15% of after-tax income. Now, I didn't just come up with this percentage out of thin air. I've watched households over the last 25 years who utilized this rule, who looked at a house as a place to live, but not as an investment. In other words, if they had an intimidating mortgage obligation, it was too painful. They had other important goals they had to fund. So when I isolate out my mortgage, my HOA, my homeowner's insurance payments, and I divide by my take-home pay income, my ratio is 7.6%. I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm not doing it. What I'm saying is walking the talk of the RIA rule. I have up to 15%, and I will not break my own rule. You see, you have to create your own rules away from the mainstream. Just like all of a sudden advisors are talking about having cash for living expenses. Where were they a year ago? 3 to 6 months of living expenses in cash. Not enough. Not enough. You need a year to 2 years through this COVID storm and the muck you're going to walk through. You need 1 to 2 years and fund that above all else. unless you're getting a match for your company retirement plan, right? Because the financial industry says put everything you have in pre-tax accounts. Don't worry about anything else. Do you think maybe there's a reason for that besides just they're worried about your retirement? Or are they worried about you collect, or they're worried about more the collection of more fees and keeping your money held captive? If you don't have the emergency reserve and you don't have what we call the financial vulnerability cushion, because you could think today, my job's 100% safe. I know it. How do you know it? You think you work for a big company and you're safe. You're not. You're far from it, right? This is the time to sit at the dining room table with everybody and make these decisions, to set these rules that give you financial breathing room so that you're not the 50% of Americans who can't raise $400. And I know for a fact a lot of you aren't, but you know somebody who lives like this. Don't be afraid to share that with your children, with your grandchildren, that this is what they need to do. Right? It's important. So, again, these rules, variable expenses. Again, there's the article at Real Investment Advice, The Winter of Household Finances, that'll give you the rules. We have financial guardrails for everything. How to prioritize your savings goals. I would not tell my child to save in her retirement account just to when she's ready to buy a home, she's able to take a distribution from that retirement account, which the government allows her to do, by the way, without a penalty. Why? Why am I allowed to leak into my retirement account to buy a product? And if I am doing that, if I am actually taking money out of my retirement account to buy a home to live, what does that say about my ability to own a home? It says I shouldn't own a home. Okay? If that's what it says. You see, this financial stuff is a lot of eat your broccoli from Impossible Foods, and that broccoli is all different colors from Imperfect Foods, not impossible. Sometimes it's impossible to eat. I got to steam it. But the point is, Brent, finance stuff is hard. I mean, it's not difficult. It's just discipline. There's just disciplines to stuff, right? You come in the morning, you know what time you get up, you come to work, you got all this discipline, right? You've been driving the same car, what? You have 500,000 miles in that muscle?
It's all about muscle memory in some regards.
It is.
And what you're talking about doing is developing financial muscle memory.
That's all it is. And now is a good time to do that and to teach your kids how to go about that, right? Overall. Now, the other thing we want to be sure of through this winter is to get educated about Social Security. We are very concerned that I'm not worried about Social Security going away. Let me be clear about this. But we are going to see, you see, Social Security, well, gosh, can't even get into this because it's the end of the show. I'm going to take over, Chris. Chris, I'm taking over your show. I'm going to be I'm going to be taking over. All right. I think he can kick my butt if I take it over. Hey, so listen, tomorrow, Candid Coffee. We're going to continue this again next week here on the Real Investment Show. Just sit down at the table this weekend. Go through things. Make sure you're financially strong. Have a great weekend, everyone. Chris Salcedo's next. Thanks again.
Money, 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 in a rich man's world. Money, 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 always sunny, in a rich man's world. All the things I could do if I had a little money, it's a rich man's world.
Get daily investment news you can use, delivered at the speed of the internet. Sign up for the Real Investment Report now at realinvestmentadvice.com.